Cameron Smith, how you going, brother?
Oh, I'm good, mate. How are you going?
I'm very good, thanks. Very good. Just had my son's first birthday on the weekend. It was a very special weekend and really enjoyed it.
Congrats, mate. Congrats. How was the turnout? Big turnout?
Mate, he's more popular than me, that's for sure. Jesus Louise. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it.
Did you crack him a bloke beer? Surely. 12 months?
Listen, I won't say that I won't say on radio what I did or didn't do.
Okay. No, that's good, mate. Great round of footy. Great round of football. Some cracking matches. Melbourne Storm wrapping up another minor premiership. Congrats to them. The Chooks had a huge win on the Gold Coast. I actually went to that Titans Roosters game. I just sat in the right up in the back of the stands behind the post and just thought I might just get comfortable here and have a look at this match. And geez, they look very, very strong, the Roosters. Very strong.
When they switch it on, they are hard to stop momentum, aren't they? They're just big, powerful, very, very skillful. Mate, but we got some, what would rugby league be without drama? We had incredible rugby league on the weekend, but it has been filled with drama, so much so that reports are that the NRL is looking at a complete overhaul at potentially the bunker and also the referees. But we actually have Graham Annesley on some dubious calls on the weekend here.
Across the course of the season, the referees have been reasonably consistent with this. And none of that justifies the error that was made on the weekend. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just, again, trying to put some context around it. In some ways, we've been, because we have been reasonably consistent with this, it in some ways leads to the discussion or the comments that we've had over the course of the weekend where we've conditioned everyone to almost recognise what results in a sin bin or a send-off. And then when it doesn't happen, everyone's up in arms. But that can only happen if they're getting most of these right. And they are getting most of them right. But it's not good enough to get one wrong in any round of football because they should be getting them right.
There we go. Geez, I've got plenty of feelings about that, but I'll leave the floor to Smithy.
Yeah, bit going on there. And I know Graham Annesley was under a fair bit of pressure. He was feeling the heat, of course, after that while it was a Barry Crocker, wasn't it? To leave Stephen Crichton on the field. Like I think everyone watching the game, and like Graham Annesley just spoke about that, how people are conditioned now to what is and what isn't an offence to go to the sin bin, and like that was clear as day. And I think that's what the issue that fans of the game took to the non-sin binning of Stephen Crichton was that was out and out. Like, how does a bunker official miss that? I don't know who was in the bunker at the time, but they had plenty of time to view the tackle. It was high, it was forceful, and that's the language that the officials use. That's not the language you and I use, but that's what's been introduced into our game. It was high and forceful. So how do they fail to get it wrong? And I think that's where everyone brings up the issue, right? Is that how do they miss that one? There was one the previous night, Manly v the West Tigers, where the West Tigers player was hit high, but remained on the field. So and the Manly player was sin bin. So how do you? That's the hardest thing to get your head around, right? Like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he was knocked senseless. You could see he knocked to the ground. He tried to get up to his feet, and he was stumbling around everywhere. Stephen Crichton stays on the field, whereas you look at the Manly and the West Tigers incident where a player's hit high, that player rose to his feet straight away and was ready to play the ball, yet the Manly player goes to the sin bin. I think that's where people go, hang on a minute, like they scratch their head and go, this doesn't make sense. So I think that's the issue people are taking, not the, that's been a sin bin all year and now it's not, and why is that? And blah. I think that's the issue because they watched the game the night before and go, okay, righto, yep, no, that's fair enough. Hit him high. It was forceful. We heard the referee talk about, contact and all this sort of stuff. Sin bin. And then they turned the TV on the next night and watched the Crichton one where it's almost identical, yet he stays on the field. I think that's the issue people are taking. So I'm glad the NRL have come out and said, well, I think it was Peter V'landys, wasn't it? He said he's come out and said that they're going to have a full review of the bunker, and particularly around high contact and what is and what isn't a sin binning.
Yeah, look, first of all, I want to say I do really respect that Graham Annesley comes out and fronts the media.
Oh, yeah.
It would be super tough. It would be super tough. So I want to get that out of the way. Like, I do respect it and I appreciate it. But I just think as a fan of the game, the last thing you want to hear is the reason you're so angry is because we're so good at our job. Like, basically, we've been so consistent and good, that's why you're angry. Not because we missed a absolute howler. It's actually because we're just so consistent. And also, any reasonable rugby league fan is okay with things on the fly being missed. Like, you can have howlers on the fly missed. We see forward pass all the time that are on the fly that are missed. So we go, you know what? You get pissed off and you move on. It's the video referee ones where we're watching it over and over again. And then we hear things like mitigating circumstances is reason why Stephen Crichton wasn't sent 10 to the bin. And look, no one is saying that Critter meant that. Of course he didn't. Of course he didn't.
Nope.
It was just an unfortunate situation where he was trying to close a gap. And RTS was bracing to bump, so he was lowering his body height slightly. So I just think that with stuff like this, that's from a general fan's perspective. From a Warriors fan's perspective, in the same game, there was another head high where Mitch Barnett is literally bleeding and essentially had to stand up and stare at the referee until they actually had a look at it to get a penalty, I'm pretty sure. And that you could argue that was also 10 in the bin. So I just think I think the idea that they've been so consistent, that's why we're angry, is not a fair assessment of why the fans are angry, in my opinion. Because basically what you're saying is, like, we should be grateful that they're doing their job. And it's just like, well, no, that should be the baseline consistency.
Yeah.
And then these really tough calls on the fly that you can, how often when you're commentating, Smithy, a ref will make a really good call where you thought it was the opposite, and you go, damn, that's a bloody good call. That's what we should be praising, things like that.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot, mate. And that's what I was just saying earlier, is that, like, this was an absolute Barry Crocker. You know what I mean? And I think that's when people go, hang on a minute. How do we miss that? Like, really, how do we miss it? The game stopped. Roger went down, right? He had players from both sides trying to assist him to stay on his feet. And the game stops. So surely the bunker, we've been told that's how they jump into action right then. And they watch replays, well before we get the opportunity to do so. Surely when you're sitting in that bunker, you can see that is direct, high contact with Roger's head, and it's forceful. Don't worry about mitigating circumstances. He hit him.
It's
with RTS
it's
as black
well.
And white.
It's black and white. And the thing that's frustrating for Warriors fans is RTS 3 to 4 weeks ago was sent for 10 for the most innocuous legs tackle you'll ever see in your life. And the argument is we're trying to protect the player. And RTS is going, well, what about my protection? I just got a direct shoulder to the head. I didn't lay down and try and milk it. I got up and was stumbling all over the joint.
That's right.
And
now he can't play this week.
Can't play this week. He won't play. Not only is it that, it's also, and I understand in a perfect world we would want every match officiated to the best of our ability. But we definitely do put more time and effort into big games like grand finals, like Origin, and also milestone games for players. Like, if a legend is retiring, obviously it's a big game.
Yep.
And I think that's what upsets the Warriors fans so much, is they're not asking for special treatment. But this was Shaun Johnson's last ever home game. It will not be remembered as Shaun Johnson's last ever home game. It will be remembered as another fellow legend getting head-high'd and getting one of the worst calls of the season, done against him pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's a frustrating thing is for Warriors fans. And I understand reffing's tough. I totally get it. It's such a thankless job. I get it. But, gee, sometimes you just wonder.
Yeah. Well, that was Corey Waddell, the player I was talking about.
Yes.
On Solomon, the high tackle on Solomon, where he come through and he hit him with his hand. I had a bit of a chuckle to myself because I heard the referee, his description was like, you hit him with the bony part of your arm. It was, what part of your arm is not bony? I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest bloke, but that's all I feel is bones on my arms. But that's what I compare it to that. But Solomon jumped up to his feet.
Mm.
I completely agree with the referee. Like he hit him high, hit him on the chin, but he wasn't stumbling around like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck was. So, what are we trying to match here? Is it severity? Is it what? Because clearly Tuivasa-Sheck's tackle was much more severe to cause those issues.
Well, ironically, Paseka actually hit
afterwards
harder.
Yeah.
As I said, I really do respect Graham Adamsley coming out and fronting the media, but I think the last thing fans want to hear is you're so angry because we're so good at what we do, rather than, you know what, guys, we made a mistake. We'll do everything we can to fix that mistake moving forward, and totally understand your frustration.
Mate, I get still talking around this high contact stuff, right? I get the ones where, they err on the side of caution, the bunker I'm talking about, to put someone in the bin when it comes to, say a player's returning the ball, right? And he slips or trips or falls or whatever and falls into the tackle, okay? I'm okay with a penalty.
Yeah.
Even sometimes I'm like, oh, look, what does a defender do there? Like, he can't disappear, but we want to try and eradicate the high contact, so we'll live with it. As long as that's a penalty every game we play.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm okay with them saying, look, it's not a sin-binable offence because there wasn't really too much else the defender could have done there. Or if someone is, say, running across field, an offender, tackles him, low around the legs, like chops his legs out from underneath him, and then the second defender coming in hits high. Like, I get that. But the Tuivasa-Sheck, Stephen Crichton tackle, there was opportunity for Crichton to lower his level.
Well, he was rising into the contact. He was
That's
rising
right.
into it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones I just don't think that there's any reason to not sin bin a player in a tackle like that. Because there's opportunity for the defender to change his target zone. And Stephen Crichton didn't do that. So we got that wrong. Let's hope, we've got 6 weeks left of footy. Let's hope we don't see one of those clangers for the rest of the season. And the NRL can get on top of it. They can sit down and work out a way where we don't miss those really obvious ones.
Yeah, and the positive thing is the game is in such a good spot. This is really one of the main areas that, is a little bit of a concern. Outside of that, the rugby league has been absolutely fantastic. Now, Kevin Walters on the build-up to the game against the Dolphins has had this to say.
Yeah, well, every game when you play at the Broncos is important because teams come and they want to play and play well against you. Tonight was no different. We just enjoyed tonight, first, Joel, if that's okay with you, and we'll get on to whoever we're playing next week.
Next week, though, Kev. I know.
Well, every game's important, though, Dobbo.
Yeah, but it's a lot more important now because you have
it's
to
no
keep
more
on
important
winning.
than tonight was, really. To win tonight, we didn't play well, then we managed to win. I'm sure if we come up with that next week, might be the same result.
Yeah, I guess when you do, though, Kev, do you think you'll mount a challenge, or can you seriously threaten from the bottom half?
I definitely think so. But, we're getting a bit far ahead. We will make the finals, but we've got to, play well next week against Redcliffe.
There you have it, Kevy. He's going back and forth with the journos. I can understand where Kevy's coming from in regards to, I know the media loves to, gin up this rivalry, and there is a rivalry there for sure, but, the Broncos have far more concerning things than a bloody rivalry. They're trying to make finals. Every game is literally a grand final to them.
Yeah. Well, mate, they've been relying on some results to go well ahead of them, for themselves, for the future of their season, and it's gone their way so far. And look, the other night, Kevy said it there, they played poorly. Parramatta jumped out of the blocks. And it almost looked like Broncos. It almost looked like they weren't ready for that, or they weren't expecting Parramatta to play that way. And it was interesting talking with Adam Reynolds after the game, right? And he looked really disappointed, even though they'd won. He knew that they played poorly, and it was more around their attitude, I think, that he was disappointed with. And we spoke to him, and Jonathan Thurston said, given your season was on the line and you're playing against a side running down the bottom of the ladder, they're equal last, in fact, how is attitude an issue? And he couldn't really answer it. You know, he really couldn't answer it because he said the preparation's been quite good, like in their training sessions, and the energy's been great. But that is a concerning thing to run out in front of your home crowd, knowing that you must play well, and to play well, usually the attitude is we need to start well. But they were down 16 points after 12 minutes. Fought back well. I thought Adam Reynolds himself did a fantastic job to get them back into the game, particularly with his kicking. I think that got them back into the game. A couple of individual efforts by a couple of their players, but yeah, look, it's. I don't know. Like Kevy's obviously upbeat, right? He's a positive guy. That's the way he coaches too. He's always about being on the front foot and being positive. And yes, we will win. Yes, we'll play well. But if they play the way they did last week against the Dolphins, they won't beat Dolphins.
No.
And like they'll definitely will not beat Melbourne. Because as we'll talk about a bit later, Melbourne, Craig Bellamy's resting 10 or 11 of his regulars this week, and I think they're all back. I think his plan is they're all going to be back on board for that Broncos match. So they have to win both if they're a chance. But their main concern should be improving on their performance from Parramatta against Dolphins, because that I'm telling you right now, if they put the same performance in this week. On Saturday against the Dolphins, which is going to be it's a sellout at Suncorp, big game. They won't beat the Dolphins.
No
they
way.
Just won't beat them.
No way. And that's the biggest concern with the Broncos. I guess what I spoke about earlier in the week on my podcast was, as a fan, sometimes seasons don't go right for your team, and certain things don't go well, and you can kind of just. You can focus in on that. But I think with the Broncos, the real positive is out of that game is they did show fight towards the end.
Yep.
It just depends how you look at the game, though, because the more alarming thing, broadly speaking, is how do you go into a do-or-die game and come out like that in the first 20?
That's right, mate.
Why does it need you 20 minutes to get in the mindset of, actually, we need to chase the game now?
Yeah.
And I guess, if that is the mindset going into a do-or-die game, that's a cultural problem. And I don't mean cultural problem as in the Kevy's off the dressing room or, anything like that. Yeah. I mean cultural problem as in what is happening leading up to games that is not putting the boys in the right mindset.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Whether that be through sort of training, coaching, playing group as well.
Yep.
Because
senior leadership.
They really should have been up for that one. They really should have been. Adam Reynolds as skipper said as much straight after the game that they were disappointed and they didn't play well. Kevy said it in his post match as well. So it's a really strange one when you are playing for your season. How do you start that way? Because that's what the opening exchanges, right? The first 20 or 30 minutes. That's when you should be at your best.
Yeah.
That's when you should be your most energized, your most enthusiastic. Because as the game wears on, you get more tired. But yeah, maybe there was just a little bit of complacency, maybe. And look, we don't know, right? Because we're not out there, we're not at training, we're not out in the field with the game, with that team. But maybe they thought, look, okay, we're fighting for our season, but it is Parramatta, right? No Mitch Moses, they're running last. We're a better team than them, even with a few players out still, and they got caught in the blocks.
Yeah, I think that when I look at it, and I actually spoke about this with the Eels earlier in the year, it looks like a comfortable side. And what I mean by comfortable is when you're running out, it feels like it's okay that this is happening. Okay, we lost a game, and I probably won't lose my spot and not going to get dropped. And whenever you get into a comfortable phase, you're always going to have games like this where you're content with where you're at. And I think when you watch the Broncos in the first 20 minutes, they seem content. They seem we made a grand final last year. We'll go out play a bit of footy. And it wasn't until they realised, actually, this could be embarrassing, that they kind of clicked into gear. So hopefully that changes, especially heading into next year, because there's no reason to be content. Really, a grand finals was incredible. The boys are such a great side, and there's so much potential there. But in reality, nothing has been achieved yet, unfortunately.
Kevy seems Well, he sounds very positive, right? Like he's talking like we will play finals, and yes, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but yes, we can make a run for a premiership from the bottom half. What realistically, will they make finals?
I don't think they could beat the Storm, like a full strength Storm
I'm the
side.
same.
Round one, Bellyache loves that clash. Like, I mean, I know we both rested players last year, but even last year when we were a much better side, we lost to the Storm in the last round.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I would love more than anything for them to make the 8. But in saying that, maybe not making the 8 will have better dividends next year for us to really drive home the point that things need to change. And this young playing group, we just need to come together and be better and set higher standards than what was set this year, unfortunately. I understand there was injuries. I get all that. But I think that this young playing group is a much better playing group than where they're located right now, which is obviously ninth.
Yeah.
Finals race as it stands. 7th is Manly on 31 points with 121 points differential. They've got Bulldogs and Sharks, so Bulldogs away, Sharks at home. Then 8th is the Dragons on 28 points. Excuse me, I said the Broncos were 8th, but it was the Dragons on 28 points. They are currently... No, sorry, I said the Broncos. Apologies. They're currently 8th on 28 points with minus 120 points differential. They've got Eels and Raiders. Then you've got the Broncos on 26 points. They're plus 2. And they've got Dolphins Storm, both at home. Then you've got Dolphins on 26 points. So the next three teams are all on 26 points. Dolphins, Knights, and Raiders. The Dolphins have minus 27 points differential. The Knights have minus 70, and the Raiders have minus 131. The Dolphins' 2 last games are the Broncos, Knights. The Knights are the Titans, Dolphins, and the Raiders are the Roosters, Dragons. So having a look at this ladder, you'd have to think that the Dragons actually have it's probably the Dragons and the Knights have the easiest run in home.
Right.
The only negative for the Dragons is their points differential, which is minus 120, which is actually the second worst of that big batch that we just read out.
All right.
Out of the Broncos, Dolphins, Knights, Raiders, take Broncos out because they've easily had the most disappointing year out of the lot because they should have finished in the top 4, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So out of the Dolphins, Knights, Raiders, who do you think's had the most disappointing season?
Oh, geez. It's hard to knock Dolphins again, mate, because they've been pretty...
Yeah.
Like, particularly the first half of the year. I reckon where they would be disappointed with is how they've failed to finish off the year. The second part of the year, for various reasons, they've struggled a bit to try and find wins, and they haven't played the same type of footy that they played in the first half. But I reckon Knights.
Yeah, me too.
I reckon Knights. Yeah, given what they did last year at the back end, and maybe in the back of their mind they were thinking, well, we'll just do that again. We'll just go on a bit of a run, but they haven't been able to do that. But they're a much better team than that anyway. Like, they shouldn't have to wait till the back end of the year to try and find, 6 or 8 consecutive victories to do it. Like, that, they've got a pretty good side up there. And watching them play, and I've seen them a couple of times live this year. Like, they're one of these sides that when they play their absolute best, they're so damaging, particularly in attack. But it's been the issue for them for the most part of the year, where they can't put that together for long periods of time.
The Knights.
So that's why I have them as possibly the most disappointing out of those 3.
My biggest concern for the Knights is that I have no clarity as to what the side is heading forward. I think that if there's one thing, a positive you can take away from some of these other teams is you've got like positions kind of locked in and, okay, we're going to bounce back here and this is the changes we can make to attitude or whatever. With the Knights, it's kind of like, who's the 6 and 7 next year? Like the 2 most important positions who's going to be the 9 next year? Like, there's been talks about Brayley potentially being talked to and I just like heading into a whole new season where you don't know who your 9, 6 and 7 is going to be, like that's almost unheard of. And that's my biggest concern. Now, granted, out of all those teams, and I know we took the Broncos out when I was talking to you, but out of all the teams, the Broncos are the most disappointing. And I'd argue, Broncos and Rabbitohs have probably had the biggest disappointing seasons. Then you'd probably underneath that put the Warriors. So, yeah, tough year. But the good thing is that I do think when you look at the Warriors, for example, there has been improvement made in areas of their game. And some people will go, oh, it's just the same old Warriors. Good one year, bad the next year. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think it is the same old Warriors. I do think that there's something different going on there. And I think they can prove in on next year. And the Rabbitohs is another one that, in almost the opposite to the Knights, where they've got Wayne Bennett coming in, some really good recruitment's being done. You look at that roster heading into next year, the forward pack looks outstanding. So there's a bit of excitement there, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, that was the ladder update for Bailey Ladder, Australia's #1, bringing safety and efficiency to worksite for over 65 years. After the break, we'll get to your text messages. Trbojevic wanted to give his club back $750,000, but the NRL said no. Now, the $750,000 was over the next 2 years, so you're obviously you split that up into two. This is reported by Michael Chamis. The Sea Eagles fullback, who has been plagued by injuries over the past 5 years, applied to reduce his $1.15 million salary by almost a quarter after he was sidelined for 2 months following a hamstring injury against the Dolphins back in round 10. Burdened by the knowledge that he had played just 28 games in 3 seasons to that point, Trbojevic approached Manly Power brokers about taking a significant pay cut, a gesture of goodwill he believed would alleviate some pressure at the club and rid him of guilt he was feeling for missing so many games. However, the salary cap auditor rejected the proposal on the grounds allowing a player to take a voluntary pay cut would set a dangerous precedent and might encourage rival clubs to pressure their players to do likewise to create a salary cap space. Oh, mate, I really like the NRL did this because I do think it would open a massive can of worms. And it's a great point the NRL make, like, if the clubs got wind that they could pressure players into taking less, oh, my God, I'm telling you, it would happen immediately. Like, literally, if they said, oh, yep, Tommy, yep, you can take a pay cut, I promise you the next day, 17 clubs or 16 other clubs would walk in and start asking blokes. Or not even asking, but subtly putting them in positions where, you feel uncomfortable, but all that kind of stuff. I think also, I understand people's idea about injury compensation and those injuries that, okay, he's out for 2 years or he's out for a whole season. I get all that. In regards to the type of injuries that, either Pappy had or Tommy had, I think that's almost like the art of signing contracts as well. And what I mean by is like the best part of a rugby league player, in my opinion, or one of the best parts is availability, durability.
Yeah, durability.
Yeah. And so I think that the best clubs often look at that as one of the key components of signing someone is how durable is this bloke? Like how often is he off the field and on the field?
Yeah, it adds value to that particular play, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, obviously yourself is a perfect example, but a current player, like look at Brayley at the Sharks. He is never injured. Imagine the value a lot of clubs would place on having your 9 every game, every season.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, like the level that those players play with, low maintenance, as you said, like they're very rarely in the medical room seeing physios or doctors. They just get on with their business and go and play footy. So there's no doubt that would add value to individuals when clubs are looking at that. And I think that, when you look at the good clubs, they tend to do that. They do a fair sort of background check on their physical history and what's happened to them, especially in like their junior footy days. Like, have they been plagued with injury, or have they come through relatively healthy and unscathed? They've had no major injuries. But yeah, it's a funny one. Look, that's a bit of a reflection, like just on this Tommy Turbo stuff. Like that's a bit of a reflection of him as a guy, though.
Yeah,
to feel
what a bloke,
to feel that bad. There's been numerous people that have had serious injuries and multiple serious injuries that are just like, wow, I'll cop my money.
Well, I got injured playing sport, like doing my job.
So I want my pay.
Yeah,
but to offer up that, that's a lot of money. $750,000.
Ooh, I mean, look, Tom Trbojevic, he's a special player in the game. Like, really a bloke that any rugby league fan can be proud that he represents rugby league because he's been such a good a representative for rugby league. I got a text here. So why can players pressure clubs for a contract upgrades during a contract? It works both ways, but that's from Azar. Well, not really, because the club can just say no. Like,
yeah, that's right.
The club can just go, no, we're not paying you that.
Yeah. Players can do whatever they want mid-contract.
Yeah.
Mid-term, like they can just say, look, I'm playing well, I want more money. And the club can say, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's
See you in
awesome.
a couple of years.
Yeah, that's great to know. Great to know. Next time you're playing poorly, we'll come and ask you about a pay cut.
That's right. Which is typically the answer, right? Whenever this topic has come up, like ever since I was playing footy, that the people that have been around the game for a long, long time, and especially those involved in list management and recruitment and all that sort of stuff, like you go, well, like he's playing the house down. Why can't he get an upgrade? Well, that's the first thing they say back to you. Well, if he's playing poorly, can we take some money off him?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you go, oh, no, I suppose. That's a good point.
and also, I think sometimes it gets lost in and granted there are special circumstances, but when you signed that contract that might go for 3 or 4 years, the reason you signed a 3 or 4 year deal was security. And
that's right. Yeah.
So if you are so confident in your ability, sign a 12-month deal. And so to come back to a club, and granted, there are unique circumstances. Like you might go from a rookie to like an Australian player, and no one really saw it coming, and it would only be fair that you're giving that, So there are unique circumstances, but in about 90% of the cases, you've signed a contract, and that extra the last 2 years where you feel you're being underpaid, well, you're not, because the sense of security that you got when you signed it, that's where you got your money. That's where your value came in. And so, we've got some other contract talks as well. Dragons are preparing a deal for Eels prop Regan Campbell-Gillard. The Telegraph is reporting Campbell-Gillard remains a high priority target for the Dragons as their coach Flanagan looks for size, power, experience as part of his rebuild at the Red V. I tell you what, if it's a rebuild, it's a bloody good one. It's already in full flow. It is understood the club is in the process of finalising offer for the former New South Wales and Australian prop, who has a year remaining on his deal at the Eels, but has been given permission to explore his option on the open market. Yep. What do you reckon? Good move for both parties? Thoughts, Smithy?
Well, look, if he's not wanted a para, geez, like the Dragons, aren't they putting a bit of a roster together?
Cookie, Holmes,
25, and is Kyle Felt going?
Felt's gone to St Helens.
Oh, he's St Helens.
Yeah.
Okay, but was there a bit of talk that he was possibly going to St George? No,
there might have been some whispers.
Tossed up
because of the fact that obviously the Cowboys had spoken to him. But yeah.
Yeah, goodness me. Well, look, they're on the improve, aren't they? From last year to now, and Shane Flanagan has had a massive part of that. To turn them around into a side that could possibly be playing finals footy this year. More than likely will be. And then you add these guys in, like the guys that have the experience, like Val Holmes and RCG, Cookie. It might be the thing they need, just to have a couple of more older heads around Ben Hunt to help bring this sort of young brigade through and turn them into a real force.
Now, the sticking point is the report is that RCG's management is looking for 3 years and the clubs are looking at 2 years. Right. I understand where RCG is coming from. Of course you want 3 years. Like, you're at the end of your career, you're looking to move, you're probably on a pretty good wicket of the Eels. Like, why would you move early if you don't have to?
Yep.
But if I was running a club, I would offer him 2 years, just because he's such a physical player. You just don't know when that physicality will catch up.
Well, he's 31.
Yeah. In
the
middle.
And I think a 2 year deal is it's a fair deal, particularly moving clubs, right? So if he wants to move, I think a 2 year offer from Dragons, that's fair enough.
I think the way he would be looking at it as, I've already got another year at the Eels, so really all you're doing is giving me 1 year.
Yeah.
And maybe,
but in saying that, right? So say he stays at Para for a further 12 months, is he guaranteed to get a contract after that?
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Say he plays at Para, right? I'm just talking hypotheticals here.
Yeah.
Say he doesn't leave and he plays on at Para and they go on to not have a great year. Say they have a similar year to this year, right? Because there's going to be, I think we all realise that there's going to be some changes happening, and it might take some time, like it has at other clubs, in that sort of rebuilding sort of phase, if you want to call that. Let's just say they don't have a great year again. Once again, they finish down the bottom. What does that do to RCG's options after 25?
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So he's got to weigh that up, mate. He's got to weigh that up. Like he goes, righto, I've got if that report is true that the Dragons offered him 2 years, guaranteed 2 years at the Dragons, who look like a footy side that are on the up. At the very least, it looks like they're going to play finals this year. Whereas your current side, we are so far off the mark.
And also, to further your point, if the club has said to him, mate, look elsewhere, it's not going to be a nice time next year for you, mate.
No,
and RCG would know that.
Mate, clearly you're not in their plans.
Yeah, you will be a tough year for you. It will be a tough year. I think also, if I'm RCG, I'm looking at the Dragons squad and I'm going, how many young gun forwards do they actually have in the front row?
Yeah.
If they've got some decent ones but haven't really played NRL, I kind of back myself to go, there isn't really anyone screaming out coming through that is going to take my contract in 2 years. Maybe I get that extra year at the Dragons if I manage to get them into a top 6 finish next year or whatever it is.
Yeah, get over there, be the leader of that pack.
Yeah.
Back yourself.
I mean, I love what the Dragons are doing. I really, really love what the Dragons are doing, making noise in the market. And you know what? It's funny is that initially when Flanagan was making all these noises at the start of the year, I was actually against it. I was like, mate, you're just putting extra pressure on yourself. It's an extra headline.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there and you're telling who you're going after recruitment-wise. That'll put players offside. I mean, I couldn't be more wrong. Flanagan has been absolutely incredible in the way he's managed to just create buzz around the Dragons again. Because for many years, it was just there just wasn't much going on down the Dragons. It was very safe, kind of just almost playing not to lose rather than playing to win.
Yep. And really sort of just, like you said, it was almost like they weren't competing for a comp. They were just happy to sit around the 8.
Let's not try and finish as low as possible. You know what I mean? Rather than what do we need to do, gamble everything to win a comp. It's more, let's just go into the season so that we can finish not as low as, whatever it is.
Let's not win a wooden spoon.
Yeah, honestly. And some of the recruitment was just so safe. Real safe recruitment. Whereas you got a guy like Flanagan who's gone, you know what? Like Luciano Leilua, I trust that I'll get the best out of him.
Yeah.
Tyrell Sloan, a guy that many people would have thought was going to probably go the start of the year. I trust I'll get the best out of him. NRL investigating plan to revive extinct National Youth Competition in 2026. The NYC was controversially axed at the end of 2017 amid concerns over the costs of the Under-20s League, a spate of blowout scorelines and player welfare issues. If the concept is given the green light, the NYC will return as an Under-21s competition encompassing existing Jersey flag teams plus 4 junior Queensland outfits from the Broncos, Titans, Cowboys and Dolphins. The National Under-21s competition would provide a curtain-raiser option for NRL fixtures and deliver extra content as the ARL Commission prepares to open talks on the code's next $1 billion plus TV rights deal for 2028 and beyond.
Wow.
NYC Player of the Year honour roll. 2008, Benny Hunt, Bo Henry 9, Tarek Sims 10, DeBellin 11, Clement 12, Bryce Cartwright 13, 14, Kane Elgie, 15, Ash Taylor, 16, Jaden Brayley, and 17, Jake Clifford.
Wow.
What do you reckon, Smithy?
Well, that sounds as though like they're fairly well down the track, doesn't it?
Mm.
They're pretty certain on how it's going to be a 21s comp, and they bring in those Jersey flag sides plus 4 teams representing Broncos, Titans, Cowboys, and Dolphins. So it seems as though they're fairly well down the track on this. I'm just not sure whether it's the right thing to do though, because I thought I must admit I didn't think 20s was the right competition to have as like a national comp below the NRL. I don't know, maybe, and I'm not sure whether you feel the same way, Kempy, but I sort of look back on the days when I was a young fella watching the NRL as a national competition, and they had the reserve grade comp, like the true reserve grade comp. So it was actually the players that were the next in line to play first grade. So you go there as a curtain raiser game, and you'd be watching guys that are sort of on the fringe of playing first grade. So they became regulars. In your memory, and you'd watch them every week, and you watch their progression from playing reserve grade up into first grade.
Mate, I love the the key takeaway from that is content. So clearly what's happening here is they need as much content as possible to go to the networks and say, rugby league's more money. Because rugby league's become a 24-hour thing now, and we've got things like KO and Fox League where you can turn on the channel and watch rugby league at any time, and they need to fill those channels up with content.
Yes.
So that's a key play. So I really do like that because, the more content of rugby league, the better.
Yep.
But big but as well, under 21s I don't like because I think that when you saw, like when we were coming through and you put that jersey on for the first time, it used to mean something when you put the first grade jersey on. And I think sometimes with the under 20s is they would walk around and they would travel like the first grade players and they would have the jerseys. And a lot of players thought they'd made it before they had. And I think it was unnecessary pressure on a lot of these young guys. Now, granted, there are under 20 players that play NRL, but they are an exception. They're not the rule.
Yeah.
And so I think I agree with you, mate. If you have a reserve grade national comp, think of how much that'll increase the standard of the first grade competition. Because what you're doing is you're keeping men and women engaged in the game that usually get to 22 years old and go, haven't made it yet. All right, I'm going to get my apprenticeship, or I've finished my apprenticeship. I'm going to become a builder now and stuff that. I'm not training 3 nights a week. I'm going to focus on being the best builder I can be, or an accountant, or whatever it is. Whereas if you incentivize the older, men and women to stay in the game that from 20 to 30, and it doesn't have to be huge pay packets, but just ways for them to stay a part of the game. I tell you what, during Origin, that footy level that drops usually wouldn't drop anywhere near as much as it drops now.
Yeah.
If the complaint has been over the last few years, there's not enough talent for 20 teams, a national reserve grade comp would actually show and help us get there in regards to talent.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, right, to introduce a second, well, I'll say a second tier or a level below NRL national comp, because let's say we go, okay, let's do a reserve grade comp, right? National comp. A lot of the NRL teams don't have direct reserve grade sides, right? So they feed to multiple. So Broncos do that. Melbourne Storm do that. There's most clubs do multiple feeder sides. If you go one true reserve grade side for each club, what does that then do to the state comps?
Yeah.
So this is the difficult thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I think they're going for maybe a more junior competition or more a younger age group, is that it's not taking away too much from Queensland Cup and New South Wales Cup, which are strong competitions in their own right.
Could you go relegation?
Oh, possibly.
So you basically you get the best 4 sides out of Q Cup, best 4 sides out of New South Wales Cup. Oh, sorry, the best whatever sides, like however many is the thing.
And that's your national
reserve grade side.
Yes.
And then competition, sorry. And then underneath that is your New South Wales and Queensland Cup, and that could be filled with a bit younger players. And the teams that don't go well one year in the national reserve grade comp, they drop down, and then the other teams come up. Could you use it like that potentially?
Yeah, possibly. I guess we'd have to find out a bit more information, right? Yeah. So they're going to start this national 21s competition. Will it run 27 weeks like the NRL?
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Will it run for that length? Because when you also look at that, you go, okay, as a 21-year-old, so how many gun 21-year-olds are we have in the NRL right now? Like Lockie Galvin, he's already playing NRL. He's 19.
Yeah.
So at 21 years of age, if you're not at the point where you're going to be playing NRL at that stage, should you be playing in a national competition, or should you be back in one of those domestic comps like Queensland Cup or New South Wales Cup? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see.
Like Reece Walsh, he's 21, isn't he? Was he just turned
21,
22?
22, around there.
You know what I mean? Like that, another type of player like that age group, like it's just, they're already playing, like he's playing State of Origin.
Yeah.
At that age.
I guess the concern for the under 21 comp as well is a lot of clubs will go, look, I don't want my best player playing against boys. I need him to be playing against men in New South Wales Cup. And we actually saw that.
That's right.
In the back end of the under 20s comp going, mate, I I don't need my 120 kilo forward just rolling through a,
Playing against, young kids.
I need him playing against men that's going to rough him up.
Yeah, because in that 20s comp, like we seen young guys playing in there, 17, 18 year olds playing in that comp because let's just say a particular club, right? You had on your development list, right? You had, say, 4 or 5 really good 20-year-olds, and they get all of a sudden promoted up into the top squad. Like they're going to be playing NRL.
Yeah.
So they don't qualify for the 20s comp. So then all of a sudden you replace them with guys younger, so 18, 19, sometimes 17-year-olds. So that's the really difficult thing with this, right? Is that we've already got these lower tier, I'll say lower tier competitions established, as in Queensland Cup, New South Wales Cup. We've already got, under 20s and under 18s national competitions going on in each of the states. If we introduce this one, what there'll be a repercussion somewhere.
Yeah,
you're taking talent from some other competitions throughout those 2 states. And it's going to diminish some competition somewhere.
Yeah. Could it be a national reserve grade competition, but it's actually not the name of the club? So it's not Titans reserve grade side. It's just the like, let's say you get New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup.
Yep.
And it's the best 20 sides from that.
Yes.
And so basically they're just representing themselves, like it's a Redcliffe versus, Wentworthville or something like that.
Right.
Could you go that route? So they're getting national, they're still connected to the NRL clubs, but they keep their club of name.
Yep.
They're still training out of those facilities and everything. And then anything underneath that, any teams that miss out, they almost play in the local league, and they could potentially you could use that as relegation or something along those lines. Could you look at it like that rather than, because you're right. Whatever you do, because then you also look at Queensland Cup. Let's say a national reserve grade side under 20s comp comes in, under 21s. You'll lose all the good under 21-year-olds in the Q Cup and New South Wales Cup as well.
That's what I'm saying, mate.
Yeah.
Because and that's where currently most of the 21-year-olds that are not quite up to NRL standard at the moment are playing, right? You see, talented 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, sometimes 22, like some late developers. They're all playing. They're already playing in those competitions. So that's what I'm saying. If we introduce this national 21s comp, well, you just you cast a huge net across New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup, and you drag all of those talented 21-year-olds, and I'd say there'd be a couple of 20-year-olds in there as well, possibly 19-year-olds also, and you drag them out of those comps. What does it do to those comps?
Yeah.
It diminishes those comps. So somewhere along the line, it doesn't matter what age group you bring in, or what level it is, whether it's open men's, like your legitimate reserve grade, or it's 21s, or it's 23s, whatever it is, it's going to diminish our current competition somewhere. That's the thing that the NRL have to think about.
Cowboys playing the Storm Thursday, 7:45, Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Cowboys team news: Nanai Taumalolo returned from injury. Fini Fuyaki and McIntyre back to the bench. McKaylee is out with a hamstring injury. Storm team news: Craig Bellamy rests 11 starters with the minor premiership wrapped up last week. Tyron Wishart will start at hooker. Cam Munster at 6. Grant Anderson will be at 7. Christian Welsh and Alec McDonald will also start. Debutants for Keegan Russell-Smith, Tristan Powell, and Lasati. Smithy, speak to me. First of all, the question, there's been rumblings, it's unfair on the fans and blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on that whole yarn?
I don't think Craig really cares, to be honest. That's not his job to worry about what fans think. His job is to win games and to win premierships, as a matter of fact. That's the end goal. Given they are certain to finish on top of the ladder and take out first spot and then play fourth in round 1 in Melbourne, that's what will be in the back of his mind.
I've got a massively hot tip for you.
Okay.
There's not many Storm fans that are unhappy over the last 20 years. Just got a hot tip.
No. I don't think so either.
Highly doubt the Storm fans are unhappy right now.
Yeah.
You're kidding, aren't you?
What was blowing up like, they want to go watch him, they want to go watch that person. Well, don't worry about it. They're not playing, so just watch it from home.
Yeah. And also, it's one of those things where you're still going to see them on the sideline. Also,
Yep.
if you are a tragic fan that wants to get there, eventually you're going to see them play in a certain game. Like this idea that we've had this game locked in, and now we don't get to see this player. Like, come on, give me a break. As I said, I don't think there's any Storm fan that's unhappy with how things are going.
No, and what do these people think should happen? Like the NRL should say, look, you're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to do whatever you want. In fact, I was seeing something really funny, actually. It was, might have been the guys from, is it the Batuta Advocate? They come out and said, oh, no, look, there was 10 or 11 Storm players turned up late to training, so Craig Bellamy's dropped them for this weekend. They're unavailable. So, look, end of the day, like, surely people understand the reason behind giving these guys a rest. Surely they understand it. As much as they'd love to go see, like the full complement of players, like their best lineup. Surely they understand. Okay, righto. Well, they're in a business of winning. Okay, that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to go out and win football games. But ultimately, when it gets to this point in the season, they need to go out and win a premiership. Yeah. They're just teams are doing at this part of the year what they need to do to get their players through in the best possible shape they can, physically and mentally, for the final series, and then give themselves the best opportunity to win the whole thing. That's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all it is.
Absolutely. All right, how do you see this game going, Smithy?
Well, given the changes, it's the Cowboys' game to lose. Really, it's their game to lose.
Talk about danger game.
Oh, danger game, mate, 100%. Well, they dropped one against the Bronx only a couple of weeks ago. Like, they got hammered.
Yeah.
Hammered by the Broncos. Nanai and Taumalolo back from injury certainly bolsters their forward pack, and Nanai can find the try line too, so that helps in the scoring department. But look, the usual story, right? So they've got two options. They can roll out there and look to solidify their spot in the top 8 and pretty much guarantee themselves of locking away that spot in the first week of finals. Or they could look at this side and go, oh, mate, he's taken 11 of his best out. 3 on debut. Like, we'll win this. Because if they do that, well, I'll tell you what, they'll... Like this team the team that Craig is sending up, like he's not just going to send up blokes that are gifted jerseys. You know what I mean?
Oh, mate.
These guys that get this opportunity to play first grade for Melbourne, they'll be out there to play their very best footy and to play to the standard which is required of you when you pull on a Melbourne Storm jersey. He doesn't just hand them out. If these 3 guys aren't ready to go, he wouldn't just gone, oh, look here, go have a game. If they weren't ready to go, then 3 other guys of those 11 would be playing instead.
Absolutely. All righty, Doggies versus Seagulls. Friday, 6 p.m. McCall Stadium. Critter out through suspension. Kiraz moved to the centres. Skelton on the wing. Salmon replaces Mam, who suffered a season-ending collarbone injury on the weekend. And Curran returns from a shoulder injury on the bench. Tommy Talau returns from a pec injury, moving Tolu Kola to the bench. Lodge replaces suspended Corey Waddell on the bench. Lodge's first game since round 11. What do you reckon here?
Tolu Kola on the bench.
Yeah.
He'll stay there?
Well, they did it a bit ago where they had Lehigh Hopewadi on the bench.
Yeah. You see some coaches using that outside back, just as a bit of coverage. So, difficult one because you'd like to think that Manly aren't going to roll out and have the same performance as they did last week against West Tigers. My goodness.
Surely it's a bounce back. I mean,
me.
I think it's a kick up the backside at the right time, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you think that was, like we just spoke about, do you think they rolled out there, scored 16 points, in 20 minutes and thought, this is ours?
Oh, I think, look,
this mob's running last.
If you want to make the argument, they had some really tough calls against them, for sure. Like, you could make that. But you can't tell me that so the first 20 minutes, you can't tell me they were playing with the same intensity in the first 20 minutes as they were in the next 40 minutes. The next 40 minutes, the intensity completely dropped off.
Yeah. And, mate, look, they had a couple of 50-50 calls go against them,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
But the intensity dropped off, and I'll tell you what else dropped off, their discipline.
Oh, my.
Like like set restarts and the penalties that they gave away, like all they were doing was just inviting the West Tigers up into their defensive end, which put pressure on themselves. So you'd like to think they're not going to play that way again. And look, they can't afford to. They cannot afford to against a side like the Bulldogs. They're in a spot at the moment, the Bulldogs, where they look comfortable, right, being uncomfortable, like similar to what we talk about with Penrith at times. So they went over to New Zealand last week, and you and I spoke about that game as, look, that potentially, like, the Warriors could roll them here, like big occasion, sold-out crowd, SJ's last game at home, but they handled it, mate. They went over there, they handled the hostile environment. They were behind the 8 ball early, and they fought their way back to a really, really strong victory. Now, I know they're without their skipper this week. Crichton, he's got the 1 week suspension, but you know, I just think this time of year, the consistent performing teams, particularly the ones that defend really well, they tend to get the results. And this huge game for both sides. Huge game for both sides.
Well,
I'm leaning towards Bulldogs.
Well, it really will set your standard of where you're at in the top 8 for either side. You know, you may cross paths again in the final series.
Yep.
And if you get a big scalp over if Manly can get a big scalp over the Bulldogs, geez, that's confidence heading into finals footy.
Massive.
I think for Manly, what you got to ask yourself is, the numbers would suggest that we aren't going to score more than 16 to 18 points.
Yeah.
So if we aren't going to score more than 16 to 18 points,
yep,
are we willing to defend our asses off?
Yep.
Because basically the Bulldogs average 16 points a game. And if you go over the recent, even their game against the Warriors away, they ended up, I think it was 18 points.
Yep.
So, you know, Manly can go in there with all the attacking flair they want, and who knows, it may work. But at the very least, numbers would suggest that they're going to have to defend their asses off, and they're going to have to win the game with about 20 points.
Yeah.
So if they go out there and they start leaking tries soft, they'll find themselves in a really tough situation because they're not going to be able to score those points quickly again, most likely.
No. And it could turn into a big scoreline.
Yeah. Yep,
Real
absolutely. And look, you look at Bulldogs' last 2 games against the Dolphins, relatively tight for 60 minutes, and then boom, gone.
Yep.
Warriors, relatively tight for about 50 minutes, boom, gone.
Yep.
So really interesting. I'm actually going to back Manly in this one. I think that bounce back from last week.
Yeah.
And I just think the form Tommy Turbo's in is just unbelievable.
Well, if they can get a couple on board with him, that would help Kempy.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do it all one out at the moment.
Yeah.
In these big games, you know.
I just think that, let's say everyone else plays solidly, he might be the catalyst that can get you that extra 12 points or 6 points.
The difference.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, let's say Manly, without him, let's say they could get 16 all, and then you add him to the fray, and he can get you 24 points or something like that.
Yep.
So I think Manly, and also obviously the DCE factor, the fact that he's a big game player, he'll be looking to bounce back. Buddy, Panthers v Rabbitohs, Friday 8 p.m, Panthers Stadium. Panthers team news, Taruva and Alamotti have replaced Laurie and McLean in the backline. Mitch Kenny returns to suspension. Rabbitohs team news, Cam Murray, after failing to secure a downgrade, means Liam LeBlanc is in line to come into the 17, and Cody Walker returns from concussion. What do you reckon here, Smithy?
Oh, I think Penrith. They were way off on the weekend against the Raiders. Not taking anything away from the Raiders. They played the best game of footy that they've played in a long time, and rightly so, given their performance the previous week where they were described as, a little boy performance or a soft performance, whatever it was from Sticky. So he got him up and about for that one. There's no doubt about that. But there's no doubting Penrith are off. I think the return of Mitch Kenny will make a huge difference.
He's so important to the defence,
to their footy side, mate. He does, not just he gets through a mountain of work, but the type of work that he gets through defensively, a lot of clean-up stuff, a lot of little bits and pieces around the ruck, which, it's hard to pick up on the run, but, just being able to slow the play ball down, just that little half second each tackle he's involved in, it helps out everyone in his defensive line. And the work he does as a 9 with the footy as well, he doesn't run the ball as much as some of the other dummy halves, but his service is incredible. And he's got a great understanding of, particularly, Luai at the moment, Nath Cleary's out, but, just the timing and where Luai wants the ball and when to give him the ball and all these different things that he's built combinations with his teammates over numerous years makes a huge difference to the way they play. So I think Penrith, particularly with Cam Murray out, like Cam Murray's he is a machine.
Absolute machine.
Machine. So you take him out and you replace him with Liam LeBlanc. Well, like I say this with all due respect, it takes more than one guy to replace Cam Murray at the moment at that footy club.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think with the Panthers, what I find interesting is Taruva and Casey McLean being brought into the side. Their right side edge defence has just been, in the first half last week, Luai had made no tackles and Schneider had made like 15 to 20. And so so teams are really targeting their right side. And so Taruva's been brought to the wing. Now, Tungo has kept his spot. Now, I guess the question I have with the Panthers is Tungo has really struggled defensively this year. Yeah. And I'd love to know Ivan's thoughts. Does he feel that it's actually not Tungo struggling, it's the people around him? Because he's moved To'o there over at one stage and then he moved him back. He's dropped Taruva and bring Laurie in. Now he's bringing Taruva back. Yep. And Tunga has kind of been the mainstay there. I'm really interested. I'd love to know what Ivan Cleary's thoughts are on that right edge because it's genuinely becoming a real target area for people to attack.
Well, it's actually been an issue for them for the most part of the year, even with Nathan Cleary there.
Well,
like Nathan Cleary's had some issues with his defence. He's taken a few shows. He's been beaten inside shoulder. They've had some issues with the way that they're working their system on that right edge this year. We've seen multiple line breaks. We've seen points scored through there. So, don't know that maybe they're just trying to find the right combination to get this right edge going because, you look at the 3 premierships that they've won consecutively, it's been built off having a line that is so hard to penetrate. So hard to penetrate.
Well, I think
it's almost impossible to find space or a hole to put runners through. Doesn't matter where you go. That's why, all the talk over the last few years has been all about, trying something out of the box like second phase play or maybe some early kicks or something like that to try and break down this defensive line. But it's had a few chinks this year.
Well, I think this is the first final series they'll be going into with second best defence. Now, granted, it's still it's still unbelievable.
Still not bad.
But I'm pretty sure, they were the best defensive side last year.
Yep.
Pretty sure the year before that. I'm not sure about the year that you guys. I know you guys attacking wise that year were quite good. I'm not sure whether you.
What's that? 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
I can't recall whether you were the best defensive side.
I reckon we might have been, and I think they had the best attack.
Okay.
That was the year they were beating people 40, 50, 60 points.
And they changed everything. That's right. They instead of blowing teams off the park, they said, no, we'll focus on our defence because of what happened. Yep. And so since in their grand final winning years, I think this is the first time they're going into a final series with not the best defence.
Yeah.
Which is if they were the 13th best defence, that might be a concern. Second best defence, but it is an interesting stat.
No, Panthers though for me.
Oh, Panthers, by a lot. Dolphins v Broncos, Saturday, 5:30 p.m, Suncourt Stadium.
Well, listening to Kevy earlier, this is a certainty for the Broncos, isn't it? He said we're winning and we're playing finals, so it's got to start this week against the Dolphins. Big game though, huge game. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere at Suncorp Stadium this Saturday night. Full crowd. It's sold out.
So good.
Officially, good. I think it's sold out already.
53 or 4,000. Crazy.
Yeah, so big match. I don't know, the Dolphins the other night, they look like a team that really are just trying to hang on. They're just trying to hang on, which is a shame because they started the year so well and put themselves in a wonderful position. They got as high as 6th, sort of halfway through the comp. And, they look destined to play finals, but unfortunately, over the past month or 5 weeks, they really have struggled to find some wins. Broncos, plenty to play for. Their season is on the line. They'll have to get away to a hot start. If they allow the Dolphins to score early, it may just be the spark that they need to help them finish off the game. But I'm going to go Broncos.
Oh, Smithy, see, mate,
Mate,
you do like us, mate. Come on.
Listen, I like the Broncos. I like all teams. I like all teams, but I'm just calling it as I see it. Right. I'm going to go Broncos, given I know their captain was really disappointed with their performance the other night, even though they won, and I know that he expects more out of them, and that their season is still. There's still an opportunity for them to play finals. It might be a very, very small window, but it's still there for them. So I think they'll go out and win it because of that.
Yeah, you look at the Dolphins, and if you ever wondered how important big men are, look at the Dolphins season, because they lost their two big men in Flegler and Gilbert, their marquee, their engine room, basically.
Oh, is that the start of the year, mate?
It's literally at the start of the year. And you've got, obviously, Jesse Bromwich, but he's an aging front rower. There's only so much he can do. And I think that even when they signed Jesse Bromwich, they would probably expected this year, because this year obviously is his last year, so they would probably expect his output to have been reduced quite drastically, and it would more be his leadership that they would be leaning on this year. Yep. And so for them to essentially lose two of like the main heart of their pack of Gilbert and Flegler, like no wonder they look so tired, because they've been hanging on by a thread. They've been moving Kenny Bromwich into the middle, Kafusi moved into the middle. Whereas if you go through a season and at least get 20 games out of those two players, all of a sudden they don't look anywhere near as tired in the middle and like they're hanging on, because you watch the Dolphins and the amount of times where they hang in there the first 20 minutes or even the first 30 or 40, and they just get to the back end of the game and they're just done, dusted. Whereas if you have the heart of your pack, that's where they do their best work. That's where they hang on. Yep. So it's been real unfortunate that the Dolphins have had key injuries 2 years in a row. Then also you've got Jeremy Marshall-King. So imagine a world where you've got Jeremy Marshall-King, Flegler, and Gilbert fully fit and fighting. That forward pack looks completely different.
Yeah, well, he showed at the start of the year, Marshall-King, how important and vital he was to the Dolphins. He was one of the best number 9s running around in the game in the first 3 months.
Well, you look at the spine, there's an argument you made he's the most important in their spine.
Yeah.
In regards to, like, Katoa is a rookie, Nikorima, he fought his way to be in that position. But when talk about form players in the spine, he would be the highest ranked form player out of the spine positions. You know what I'm saying? So someone would have said at the start of the year, Jeremy Marshall-King is top 5 form 9s in the competition. I don't think they would have said Nikorima is, a top 5 6 or Katoa is top 5 7. They may have said top 10 for sure, because I think Katoa's year's been outstanding.
Yep. And
so, Jeremy Marshall-King, he probably doesn't get enough appreciation for how important he is to that spine, because it is such a new spine together.
Yeah.
In regards to the Broncos, like, the unfortunate thing is that we've been saying that their season has been on the line for months now, and we really haven't seen, a complete performance.
A step up.
Yeah, we haven't seen them come out and just go, oh wow, like, okay, they're really showing that this is do or die for them. But I hope, I'm just fingers crossed that last week was a case of they had the bye, they were just a bit shell shocked by, sometimes when you go away for a week, you kind of mentally check out for a little bit. And I'm hoping last week's close call just kind of kicks them back into gear and they go, okay, all right. Yeah. We're here to play footy. Now, Sharks v Warriors. Sharks team news, Katoa returns from concussion on the wing. Talakai back from calf injury, replacing Jesse Ramian in the centres, who was obviously suspended for a high shot. Yes. Nico Hines is extended bench as he approaches his return from injury. Warriors team news, Tuapiki steps into fullback. Nickel Klukstad moves to the centres to replace RTS. Leatoa, he replaces Adam Pompey in the centres. What do you reckon here, Smithy?
I think Sharkies. Yeah, I think Sharkies. They're travelling along okay at the moment, nicely.
They don't get
Warriors.
enough credit. I don't think they get
enough
enough
credit.
No, they don't.
They're third. Their chance of finishing top 2.
Like, they're literally
a chance.
When you look at that roster compared to the rosters around it.
Yes, like Roosters,
Panthers, and Storm.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the Sharkies get enough credit. I really don't.
Well, this year, like when you talk about roster, right? Well, they had one Origin player, and that was Cam McInnes in game 1.
And Nico obviously got dropped after game 1.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
those
also,
two boys.
Cam McInnes also got dropped.
Yes, those two boys.
So basically, at full strength in the New South Wales side, they wouldn't have probably been selected.
Yeah, that's right.
Mate, think about it as well. Fitzgibbon is in his third year of NRL coaching. Came second in his first year, fifth in his second year, and he's basically locked up a top 4 position this year.
And they've lost Dale Finucane as well.
Yeah.
A wealth of experience there, and one of the toughest guys to play in the middle of the field. But no, they've done a really, really good job, and they're so hard to beat at Shark Park. I think they'll be too strong for Warriors. Roger obviously ruled out with the concussion. Although I like Tuapiki going into fullback. He goes into fullback, because Nigel Klugstad, he moves to centres for Roger, but he's an exciting young player.
He reminds me of Kinney from the Titans.
Keone Kinney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smaller fullback, but just zippy lightning.
And plays it bravely above their weight, like super brave players.
Yeah. Maybe just a little bit too tough for the Warriors this week, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's SJ's last ever game because they have a bye in the last round.
Yeah.
But
big occasion, eh?
It's huge.
Big occasion.
I just wonder whether last week's drama has kind of zapped it out of him a little bit.
Yep.
Just with it's got to be deflating what happened last week. All righty, we're going to get through this quick. Knights Titans, how do you see this one, Smithy?
Oh, I've got Newey at home. AJ Brimson, he's been sent off to the surgeon to get that groin sorted out. So, Newcastle at home, mate. I think too strong.
Best returns as well.
$1.30.
Wow. Okay. I can't wait to see Bradman Best back.
Oh,
the big
beast.
Fella. The absolute big fella. Absolutely flying down the edge. And okay, Roosters versus Raiders Sunday, 4 p.m. How do you see this one?
I'll just spin with Angus Crichton. He spoke about how they just want to build, right? They had a really strong victory on the weekend against the Gold Coast up here, and they want to build. So I'd like to think that they go out and get a strong victory against the Raiders. Raiders very much improved, though, against the Panthers. Maybe they take a little bit of confidence out of that. One of Sticky's old clubs as well that he coached, so a little bit of feeling.
See, I reckon that the Raiders may have done their dash.
Stop it. Sorry. Okay, yeah. I thought you were going to say they're gonna beat the Roosters.
No. I think that they may have spent all their energy last week.
Yes.
Like if they were to all of a sudden back up a win against Panthers and go toe to toe with the Roosters, it's like, where has this been?
Well, mate, then Sticky's like, mate, he'll be pulling his hair. Like he'll be happy that they have 2 consecutive wins, but he's thinking, what?
Yeah, what?
So we beat Penrith,
yeah,
and then we beat Roosters.
Yeah,
mate, you'd be pulling your hair out, wouldn't you?
You'd be filthy. You'd be absolutely filthy. So, yeah, I just think the Roosters, they look confident. They got their swagger. They, when they want to turn it on, they can. To be honest, if I'm a Roosters fan, all I'm looking for is just, I don't care if we win 20-6. I just I don't want to see 22 points scored. Yes. I don't want to look up at the scoreboard and see 40-22. I want to look up, even if it's 16-0.
Yep.
I would just be focused on defence because we know the Roosters have got attack.
Yeah, Suoliti out with that neck injury that he copped on the weekend. JWH, he's suspended again, big fella. Hopefully back in. How many? What did he get? 2 or 3?
3.
Oh, 3.
So he'll miss week 1 of the finals and be back for week 2. Lucky they're top 4.
Yeah. They'll be back for week 2 or possibly week off, and then he's prelim fresh.
Yes.
Holy moly.
A fresh, angry Jared Warrior-Hargreaves.
Yeah. So I think coming back, Connor Watson, Brandon Smith, they didn't play last week. I think they might be the dynamic duo through the middle. They might be a little bit too tough for those middle forwards of the Raiders.